Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. This is TJ, your host. Tonight's, or should I say today's, topic is what does it feel like to be the narcissist and to obtain that treasured narcissistic supply? Have you ever wondered that? Because chances are, if you've been the target of such a creature, you have empathy, you feel things, you have emotions, and you're in touch with them. Then you found yourself mixed up with such a creature, and it probably came to mind on several occasions, like it did for me, to just wonder, what could be going on in this person's head? What could be motivating these behaviors? I've thought about it somewhat, plus I've drawn from my own experience with such monsters. I've got a creative little presentation for you this evening. First, remember, we, the targets, do feel empathy. We're assessing the facts that we were involved with basically a sadistic creature, especially if it was a covert narcissist. You eventually piece together that this wasn't an accident. This wasn't like you met someone who was a great person who faltered with you and then went down this trail of bad behaviors by accident. No, this is like a practiced behavior for these people. So I figured I would try to use that empathy to see exactly what it is they're experiencing. Now, of course, I can't really say for certain that this is exactly what they're feeling. The reason for all this is I've read numerous of your comments on my videos. Many of you viewers out there have said things like you're concerned that maybe you might be the monster. You've thought of monstrous things and creature-like things. This is to dispel that and to discuss that and expand upon it. Because you have to look at it this way. I recommend Sasha Sloan as well. She has some videos about this type of thing, which I'm not going to steal her material, but I'm going to use something similar to illustrate what I'm referring to. Because it is common that those who are targeted by such evil creatures eventually behave in ways they normally wouldn't, and then they become worried that, oh no, maybe I'm just as bad as this person. Once again, we're here to dispel that myth. Because it goes like this. You have to picture the big difference between you, who's the target, and the creature, who's the monster. Pretend you're looking at a model of a situation. You've got the characters coming into play. Your character represents the friendly character who is open, honest about who you are, what you're about. You believe in being nice to people, giving them a chance. Well, that's character one. The other part of this would be a practiced con artist who, from the moment they meet you, are sizing you up for exploitation. They are pretending to be another person for the sake of getting closer to you because you have something they want. So that's the difference between the two. The illustration of that would be you are with your kids. You went to a concert. ABBA was playing. You brought your two children who are 5 and 6, and you planned on having a pleasant evening watching Agneta and Frida and the rest perform. While you're watching, you feel a splash of liquid on your back. And you turn your head and you see some teenage kids with beer, underage, and they're tossing it over onto you because they don't like your clothing. They're saying stuff about you and your family. Keep in mind, you're just there to enjoy the show, and these creatures are being verbally abusive. And they're calling names, and they're pouring drinks on you, making your experience very uncomfortable. This is what we're dealing with here. You have gone to that concert for the purpose of enjoyment with your family. This thing has come into your space and has done these horrible things to you that are making your experience not so great. And in fact, it continues. You are a calm, friendly person, rational. However, in this situation, you realize that if you don't do something, this could continue and could ruin your evening. So then you might switch gears, turn around, and attack them, or report them, or go to a different area, or anything. But the point here is that your initial intention was to mind your own business and have a good time. These monsters came and decided to target you for fear practice or whatever they were doing. So your behavior then does not make you out to be like what they are, because look at the differences in intentions. You are reacting to somebody else's behavior who is perpetrating or preying upon you. Does that make any sense? Can you establish the two roles? There's the person who's minding their own business, which is you, and then there's a stranger who is deciding to aggress upon you for no reason. It's not like you did anything to them. They don't like your hair color or your outfit or whatever it is they've decided. When you choose to react and do something, that is basically self-defense. It's protecting your self-respect. It is trying to say, hey, look, I'm here to watch the show. I don't know who you are and what you're doing, but stop. That's the way it is with the narcissistic monster or the cluster B creature. It's just not so cut and dry. It's just not so obvious. It's very subtle, and that's what makes it very difficult to deal with. So how this transfers over to the cluster B relationship, I'll give a slight example. Because remember, it's not as obvious as the previous example. It's subtle, it's covert, it's not so clear. So I can give you an example of a counter-manipulation tactic that was used against such a creature, which will compare to if you were being bothered by those people at the concert, you decked them, or you called security on them, or whatever you did. If it got rid of the problem, then you felt victorious. You achieved something. Well, that's what we're going to do here. Picture someone who was involved, let's say, in an abusive relationship that wasn't so obvious to be abusive, but after it all ended, you determined, oh my goodness, this was an abusive relationship, and one of the main things that occurred in this abusive relationship was, well, let's say you were living with a person, you were a partner with this person, all of a sudden behaviors changed, the person wasn't there when it used to be, was gone when you woke up in the morning, and when you came home from your work, it was already in bed, and there was distance occurring. You saw clues and evidence that this person had started up a brand new relationship like these toxic monsters do. They don't ever want to end one before going to a new one, just in case the new one doesn't work. They want to keep the old one, and it's just sickening. Pretend you've invested your life with such a person, and you've accepted that you are with this, and then you see this happening. Well, this is a covert, subtle version of the jerk at the concert pouring the beer down you. It's, again, just not so obvious. So let's say that relationship involves lies. Lies after lies. You are scurrying around thinking, that's a lie, I think you're lying, and of course the creature will tell you, oh, you're paranoid, which is the gaslighting game they love to play. But let's just say you go through an experience like that where you finally get out of it, and you are definitely sure you never want to experience such a thing again, because it's a trapping thing. They do all that love bombing crap, and you think it's real because you don't know about this stuff and these disorders, and you settle in, and you get more settled in, and then you basically get to the point where you're there, you're trapped or hooked in, and then you discover it's a monster. Some of us take that as a huge insult. I think of myself as being cautious normally, and then I was brought into this and even made my concerns known, thinking that would prevent any foul play. It doesn't. It, in fact, invites it in some cases. But let's just say it ran its course. You finally uncovered the truth. The person was a monster, heartless, cruel, and all the other stuff. Then you're out of it. let's say that because of that experience, you have decided, you know what, I am not going to let that happen again. And you make little internal rules, like, if I ever get close to another person again, I am going to make sure that the person is the kind of person I want to be with, which again is difficult with these creatures because they put on a mask. They don't show you who they are. If you act paranoid or worried they're not great, they could easily say, oh, you're imagining things, gaslight more. But let's just say that you have made it clear to a new person that you're not interested in anything like that, and you may even vent some of your stories about, imagine what I did this time. Oh, and you tell these stories. Let's say you've done such a thing, and this new person has assured you, oh, I know exactly what that's like, mirroring. And if you're in a disheveled state, you might think that you're imagining things if you see that this is kind of strange. And if you say it's kind of strange, you're paying so much attention to me, you'll be told,
can't you just accept somebody likes you?
and it'll be difficult because you would love to believe that, but at the same time, you can not ignore your gut feeling that tells you this is too fast. But regardless, let's just say you carry on with this arrangement. You make your point clear as far as where you're at and what you don't want and what you'll do, and you try to like draw boundary lines to say, we can have some fun if you'd like, but I'm not going to do anything serious unless I know for sure I've got the right person. So don't be trying to give me a wedding ring anytime soon. In this type of situation, which I've experienced, the person pretends to be fine with you and pretends to understand you and will say, oh, I understand how that is. However, you can't help but notice they start to try to leech in closer and closer, try to take advantage of every spare moment of your time, and you kind of feel yourself like this feels like the other ones where they try to zero in on you and take over. Well, let's say that this new person ends up doing the very same type of things that the other one did. And of course, you suspect it as it happens, and you might say, seems like an awful lot like you're doing this certain thing. And of course, you'll be told, oh, you're paranoid, you're thinking of your ex, gaslight. Eventually, you get to the point where you realize that this person has been playing BS games from day one. And at that point, you have the feeling that you did at the concert when you were being pelted with beer. But again, it's not so quick and easy. Let's say you've established a routine with this person. You see each other on certain days, and you have certain events, and some of them are nice, because of course there has to be something nice, otherwise you wouldn't have any motivation to go back. You can't help but experience the cognitive dissonance of the little things that pop up here and there that indicate this person is a creature. Eventually you get to the point where, beyond the shadow of a doubt, you confirm various things. That's where we come into the counter manipulation. And what does it feel like to be one of these creatures? What does their supply feel like? Which it may be an incorrect comparison, but I think it's the closest we can get. If we're a person with emotions and feelings, we know that they're not, and we can put ourselves in their place. They can't put themselves in our place. So what I did with such a person, I played a little trick on it. Because after you see what they do and how they do it, you realize that this is no level playing ground. This is a person who feels that they're entitled to do all the horrible things you could ever think of, but you are not allowed to do any such things. And even though they're doing them, if you even bring up such a subject of how you're interested in such a thing, they'd be, oh, that's terrible, even though they're doing it. Well, this is the situation where counter manipulation can be used. Disclaimer is, it's not something to use on a regular basis. It's something to use for the moment to get you out of a tricky situation, and if you're lucky, to get yourself discarded from such a creature so you don't have to worry about it stalking you if you just leave. But I pulled a trick on one, and I think this might be similar to the feeling that they get with their supply. But remember, I didn't set out to find a person to do this to. I set out to protect my own self-respect as a result of being treated in a certain way over a long period of time. Very slowly, it went like this. You know the golden rule, how they say, You're supposed to treat others how you'd like to be treated. Well, that's, for a regular, non-toxic person, pretty good advice. They would follow it and expect others to follow it. In my situation, with this cluster B creature, after the list of lies that were confirmed to be lies, after making a big deal about despising lies and being hooked in somewhat, I decided, well, I'm not going to be a fool and continue to be honest and tell the truth about things. That's not going to get me anywhere. So I altered and switched and began to give deliberate false information. Something I would never have planned to do initially, but when you're in Rome, I had to do as the Romans did. So I would deliberately throw out a few lies here and there. That caught the attention of the creature because, remember, they're free to lie day and night, but if you do, oh, that's the end of the world. They're the only ones who can lie. You can't. So I did this, and of course I did it on purpose, so I knew it would be discovered. And when it was, I came back with a cluster B style, I would think, response where I said, well, you know how they say you're supposed to treat others as you want to be treated? Well, I couldn't help but notice on these 10 occasions you treated me by lying about these various things when you knew that I couldn't stand such behavior. So you want to know why I lied about that thing? Well, I assumed you were treating me the way that you wanted to be treated. Yes, you were lying regularly. So I figured, well, that must be how you want to be treated. So I returned the favor and, of course, kept a straight face like they do. And, oh, that person did not like that at all. You should have heard the fake morality that appeared miraculously of, that means you're supposed to treat others the way you wish to be treated. And then, of course, it was like a battle because the creature was obviously compartmentalizing. The rules are different for this person versus for its target. But I was just like acting innocent, like, oh, no, I know what the rule is. You're supposed to treat others as you wish to be treated. And I couldn't help but notice that you knew how I liked things and didn't like things to be, and you chose to do all these dishonest things, so I figured that must be the way you want to be treated. Of course, that's not necessarily advisable, but I just thought it was artistic and funny because I couldn't easily just break away at that point. Another example would be the first example we discussed with living with a person for many years and then slowly uncovering discrepancies and sicknesses. I decided to look at these scams that were being pulled and how poor quality they were. But again, keep in mind, my goal in life would not be to orchestrate scams, but I have enough intuition, knowledge, and rationalization to look at it for what it is and think, if I was a scam artist and I was pulling these tricks, I would be better at it than this. With this one I lived with for all the years, I had lived in an apartment before that I invited that person over to live with eventually in the same place. After a few years, I started to notice some really sickening things. Felt that trapped feeling again, where it's like you were faked deliberately just to get me in here. And it's a counter manipulation mode. I was fed up with some things, so I pulled a trick. This is the days before cell phones. I picked up the old-fashioned plug-into-the-wall phone, and I dialed the phone number for the apartment complex I used to live in that this person was invited into, and I dialed the number, and then I just hung it up. You have to think ahead. So when one of these events occurred that was just like, no, when, where it's like, I can't believe this, you've done this, so I decided to switch into the gear of the creature, and I went to the phone, and I pretended to dial on it, and I'd said, hi, yes, this is TJ. Yeah, I was in there last week to take a look at those apartments. I just wondered, is that one apartment still available? And I was, of course, doing like they do, not altering, just like I just did, acting like I was really talking. And oh, okay, could I come back in and see it maybe Monday at 3 or 4? Thanks. And then I hung the phone up. Well, I knew what the next step would be, because you're dealing with a con artist. I knew that this person would immediately go to the phone, push the redial button, and hope to hear some, we're sorry, But guess what it heard? Because I dialed the real number and then hung it up, it went right to that apartment building. If it was a person with empathy or with feelings or emotions, you would think that would give them a sinking feeling of, oh my goodness, he really did call them. Well, in both of these circumstances, I felt a pleasure. I felt a feeling like you do kind of when you're watching a movie and you see this bad guy getting away with murder on several occasions and you're furious. And then finally, in the final scene, you see somebody step in and catch the bad guy and get him. Well, that's the way it feels with this. And I don't know if that's the way it is necessarily for their supply, but I think it's the closest we're ever going to feel to understand what it is that they're doing. But I just couldn't imagine living day to day with the requirement of having to do such things in order to just feel alive. And that's pretty much how these monsters appear to be. Because they're empty inside, they have no real emotions, they see people who do have them, so they mimic them and they try to trick them. Well, they deserve to have the tables turned on them, or at least in my situations here I described, I felt they did. The disclaimer again is, it isn't recommended if you're with a person and plan to stay with them that you do these things, because you know why it's not a good idea. Well, if they're violent, they could kill you, but if not, these people, remember, are covert. So if you do such a thing, they don't talk about problems. They don't resolve issues. They take note of what you've done that they don't like and don't tell you, and then later they do something to get you back. So if you plan to stay with this type of person, and you plan to do these types of things, you're setting yourself up for disaster, because they will have to always be one up on you. If you get away with such a scam like those two, be prepared to be paid back. Because these people, even though they have no concept of the fact that their initial behavior is evil, like the kid at the concert, like let's say you did knock them over and whatever, they would probably get up and try to attack you further, and it's like they don't have any human concept of the fact that, like, look, I was at this concert and you were the one who ruined my evening, so I fought back. They don't see it like they think that they have the right to pour beer on whoever they want, and it's just sick. And that's why they tell you to have no contact, because you can't rationalize with such monsters. Any rational behavior you've seen was faked. So keep that in mind and share your stories if you've done something similar, and be careful.
I am the Narcopath.
Now, I knew that parts of your family were involved in law enforcement. That's one of the reasons why I gave you a fake name. I couldn't risk them finding out who I was. They'd have too much information. But regardless, I'd looked into your personal things at the beginning, and I noticed that you had an ABBA CD. I noticed that you had a Blondie CD in your car. So, what did I do? The next time I saw you, I wore an ABBA t-shirt. And just acted like it was just the most natural thing in the world. And that drew your attention in. Ooh, I love that t-shirt. I thought I bet you do. When you got into my fancy Lamborghini, I made sure I had the brand new Blondie CD sitting out there, inconspicuously, on the dashboard. And what did your eyes do? They went straight to it. Bingo! You all are so predictable. So I knew that you were falling for me. I have that charm. A lot of people fall for me. In fact, after I left you that night when I told you I was tired and had to go to bed, I went to another guy, because I can never be sure who's gonna hit and who's gonna miss. And I can't stand the idea of being alone. I'd rather have 10 of you goyim wrapped around my finger than have none. So I tell stories to each one. If one of them sees me with another one that I'm working on, I say, oh, that's my brother, you're sick, and they fall for it. Or, that's my friend, we went to grade school together. I don't find him attractive, and it always works. You are gullible, you know.
Hi, I'm the Narcopath. I know I haven't been available recently, and I understand that you've...
Gone as far as to do a background check on me and happen to see all kinds of nasty things. I'm just here to tell you that all of that is a mistake. None of that was real. That's right, the police are trying to frame me because they're jealous because I'm so pretty. And because I happened to flirt with one of the policeman's daughters. He was furious, and she was pretty good too. She bumped my Virginia Willow, Pussy Willow. He's just mad, so he put all those fake trumped, unintended charges on my record. Don't believe a word of it. Just accept the fact that I'm the best person you ever met, and anything you see on that stupid computer system is wrong. It's fraud, and I'm suing over it too. I just haven't gotten very far yet. I can't wait till we get married. You're the one for me. I could tell from the moment I saw you.